Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Carson Goblin. This is the Goblin Cave. Today we are going to start off our weekly TTRPG readings with Cyberpunk Red, a dystopian future where pretty much the corps are fighting all the time and everyone's fighting the corps. So technology is right at the end, right at the antithesis of everything. It's a class-based system and style is everything. So as you can see over the side there, this is the sequel to the Cyberpunk 2020 game system, which is about the second edition of Cyberpunk. There are other editions that go back many years. Mike Pondsmith is the main push for this game, and the Pondsmith family. They are amazing. They are very much 80s style punk with cybernetics. It is just so amazing. It is a D20 based system, so D20 places against a DC, which is very common these days with a lot of systems, so it's actually not that hard to pick up. There's a class based system, so the classes are less what you would expect, whereas a rocker boy or rocker girl is a class, and so it's kind of a bit different to your normal class system in games which you may be familiar with, but they make sense and they are really, really cool. And of course, underneath that, I've got over the side there the rules. So style over substance, attitude is everything, always take it to the edge, and then break all the rules. So it's that type of game where it's less about walking into a bar with a shotgun, but striding into the bar, caressing your shotgun, finger on the trigger, itching to blow someone, like itching to show them what you can do. It's about getting the attitude right, and a lot about Cyberpunk is the attitude. A lot about the game is taking it to the man, fighting for what you want, and really putting yourself out there and putting yourself into that world, into the deep world of Cyberpunk. So this is only the Jumpstart kit. The full rules are not out yet, though that said, the game is from R Talsorian Games, who also make The Witcher. The rule set is really similar. Okay, let's face it, it's identical to The Witcher games rule set. So I would assume that they're based off the same thing, or the Cyberpunk Red rules are based off the same thing, and they're just going to be modifying things for the cybernetics and for maybe drugs and things like that, which is actually not too bad because The Witcher has a lot of potions and concoctions and brews and etc. So that would work really well. Net running is the area which may be a bit different, and we'll touch a little bit on that today, but there's a lot of stuff there which is going to be missing, and there's still it's an interesting little thing here. So the background audio is going to be from Syrinscape. Syrinscape does amazing audio for your cyberpunk and for your fantasy and Call of Cthulhu and pretty much all your role-playing needs. Of course, there's a lot of other game systems out there, but they specifically do have the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart kit, the apartment, which is actually the sounds that we're using today. They have Call of Cthulhu, Mask of Nyarlathotep. They've got multiple Pathfinder, multiple Dungeons and Dragons specific rule sets, as well as Realms Crest. I think it's I can't remember the name. They've got others as well, and they've got lots of generic stuff to pretty much satisfy everything you need in the games you run. And you don't have to be running them online like we do. You can put all this stuff onto your phone or onto your tablet and run them in your offline games as well around the table, and can really add to the atmosphere of a game, and it allows your players to just jump in and just really feel what is going on to that extra level. So we use it all the time here. It's just that good. They are not a sponsor, I should point that out. So yeah, so this is Cyberpunk Red, dystopian future, rules light system. I would class it as rules light. It's kind of light to medium. Um, the but the reason why I've actually like it hints to light to the meaning because I have read through the Witcher versions of these rules, which is a little bit more medium style rules. But the case of this is the Jumpstart kit, so we don't have the full rules yet. The full rules are still being made. They're still being worked in conjunction with the Cyberpunk 2077 rules and Cyberpunk 2077 game. The reason being is that both R Talsorian Games, who makes this, and The Witcher, they are both owned by a parent company, which is CD Projekt Red, who is making Cyberpunk 2077 and also The Witcher computer games. So we're expecting there to be a full release of Cyberpunk Red or a version of this for the Cyberpunk 27 release. Hopefully that's really cool. Hopefully it comes out, and I'm really excited for it. We haven't had any Cyberpunk in this game or on the studio yet, but really cool. Very much a fanboy. I don't get to play many Cyberpunk or futuristic games. Had a little bit of experience with Shadowrun. Would like to play more of that as well. But anyway, let's jump into it. So this is the Jumpstart kit rule build. So we get two things with the Jumpstart kit. We get the Jumpstart kit rulebook, which is what you've got on screen, and you've also got the world book. So two of them together give you enough information to just jump in and run any game you want in Night City. You can also use your 2020 Cyberpunk 2020 game sets for that type of stuff. I have the 2020 Forlorn Hope, and I think that would be an amazing product to use in conjunction with the Cyberpunk Red rules, just as a further addition to the Jumpstart rule kit to do a bit more stories. There is one scenario in the Jumpstart kit, and it's actually really interestingly written. It's a scenario which has 4 different styles of play, which I think is a really nice way of doing things. So what I mean by 4 different ways of play, you have actually 4 different ways it can be ran. It can be ran just as a straight shoot. It can be ran in very different versions of how it's done. Straight shoot, an ambush, some hacking style things. It's really interesting. I like it. So if you want to run it with multiple groups, or even want to run it with the same group multiple times, you can keep stuffing them about. You can do different things to the, even in the exact same scenario. So I think it's really, really, really well done. Even though it's very small, it's a nice little foot in the water, or jackboot on the street for the cyberpunk setting. So I like it. I haven't ran it yet. We have it set up. We're going to be running in about a month's time on the studio. Strangely, this was supposed to be run for Christmas. That never happened, and now we're going to be running it again. We're going to run it for the first time in about a month's time. So let's get into the rules. Now, there's a few different ways we can do this. We can go straight into the rules itself, or we can go into the setting. I'm going to go to the rules, I think, this time, because there's a lot of small things in there which I think make sense and are really, really interesting. So we'll go into the first part. So you've got view from the edge, an introduction to the setting. We've got soul in the machine, life paths, putting the cyber in cyberpunk, getting it done, net running in the age of the edge, and Thursday night throwdown. So the introductory edge, like character creation, doesn't really have much on character creation. Life path is also really important. It's more of your background and your motivations, and we'll touch on that actually a little bit. Putting the cyber into cyberpunk, so talk about cybernetics and augmentation, things like that, and also a few things like some issues that might be applicable to if you have too many cybernetics, maybe. The basic core rules, which is getting it done. Net running, that's going to be an important part of cyberpunk. It's essentially a separate version, like a separate rule set for learn that net running. It's going to be an important thing. And Thursday Night Throwdown is essentially combat rules. So there's also the world book, which goes into a lot more of the details, and of course the apartment, which is the scenario that we get to run. So also we'll also just have a look at some of the characters. So this is 40. So this is Rocker Boy. So Rocker Boys are one of the classes, which is I'll just read out the top anyway. If you live to rock, this is where you belong. As a rocker boy, you're one of the street poets, social conscience, and rebel of the age of the red. So Grease is a fixer. You realize fast that you weren't ever going to get a corporate job or be tough enough to be a solo, but you always knew you had the knack of figuring out what other people wanted and how to get it from them for a price, of course. We've got solos. So solos are the one-man armies, essentially. You were born with a gun in your hand, flesh and blood. The flesh and blood hand, not the metallic weapons metallic weapons factory that covered most of your other arm. Years ago, for the nomad, years ago, the corpse drove your family off the farm. They rolled in, they took the land, and put rent-a-cops all over the place, but that was before the war. Red Eye is the netrunner. You're a brain-burning computer hacker and master of the post-net cyberverse in the age of the red. The tech. You can't leave anything alone, even if it sits near you for more than 5 minutes. You have disassembled it and made it into something new. And that's the last. So you got 6 different classes. There you go. And it's all about that attitude. This attitude in Cyberpunk Red is everything. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually just go into the getting it done, just to have a look at the cores, and we'll maybe go to the life path and the character creations before going to net running and the Thursday Night Throwdown. So go to the very core of everything first, and then we'll jump back to how it relates to things. So we're going to page 23. There we go. So that's can't be right. There's 23. Getting it done. So in role playing, the board is your imagination. The environment is described to you by the GM. It's up to you to imagine in your mind's eye where everything is based on those descriptions. Although grid maps and miniatures are sometimes used for visual aids in more complex situations. So, getting the scene down. There are a few basic rules in this mental landscape. First, if your character can see something with the naked eye or scope of a weapon, you can interact with it. If there's anything in the way that is considered to be blocked, and you can't interact with it. If it's positioned forward of your shoulders, you can face it, and you can also possibly interact with it. Last, if it's within arm's reach 2 meters, you can touch it. Otherwise you'll need a larger tool, weapon, etc. So, measurements. And I think this is really interesting to have it first. In Cyberpunk, they use yards, meters, yards, for everything. And I think that's really cool. I think it's a nice version of doing things like, okay, screw this whole why are we using yards? Why are we using feet in games systems all the time when almost the entire world uses meters? And I'm not kidding, almost the entire world. There are like 5 countries in the world which still use yards and yards and feet. And strangely enough, America your official measurement is meters. That is your country's official measurement. Use it. So, back to this. So, in Cyberpunk Red, they are going to be using meters / yards for everything. It is the same thing is by their calculation. So 1 yard is 90 centimeters. So they're just going, well, it's close enough. So 2 meters would be, a 2.5 bit yards. So they're just going close enough. So pretty much 21 yards is 20 meters. That's where it starts moving. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 18 yards is 20 meters. I remember that one, but I don't know much more than that because I don't really do yards. Yeah, but yeah, so that's your meters, that's your distance, that's your movement. Approximate walking speed. So walking is 2.5 miles per hour or 4 kilometers. Running is 5 miles an hour or 11 kilometers. Fast ground vehicle is 100 miles an hour or 160 kilometers, and then medium air helicopters, etc. But it's all figurative. It's all it's not exact, but that's a nice way of just having a good example of just a little bit of bits and pieces. Now, when you're doing role playing, time combat initiative equals reflex score plus a d10. So we're not using d20, we're using a d10 for initiative. And I don't mind this, it's okay. It's just a different dice, but reflex, dex, things like that, it's the same thing. It's what we're used to in other game systems, so it makes sense. Reflex plus d10. On your turn, so you have 1 move action and 1 basic action. So basic action is often referred to as a simple action. Also, simply as just action. Yes. So you have a move action. A character can move. Can only be. So every turn a character gets move action. Can only move. Which can only be used to move a number of meter yards equal to their move times 2. The number of squares equal to their move, which can include diagonal movement. So squares are going to be 2 meters wide, or 2 meters by 2 meters, so they can move either a number of squares equal to their move, or they can move twice that number because in meters, etc. Because it's 2 meter squares. Basic actions. Also, and importantly, you can move diagonally. So Pathfinder had an issue with diagonal movement, where the first one's 5 and the second one's 10 and the next one's 5. That's a bit of a weird one, where most other systems just went like stuff you can move diagonally. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So you can diagonal movement. So I'm going to be like referencing other game systems while we do this, because more common game systems is a nice way of going, okay, so this may do this, that may do that, and just give it a base in reality of where we do things. Okay, so basic actions. What have we got here? So basic action are the bread and butter in your turn in Cyberpunk. Mastering them allow you to do much more than just attack an enemy in your turn combat. So on your turn in combat, you'll be able to choke a security guard that you grabbed last turn, dragging their body behind cover. You'll be able to coordinate strategy with the rest of your team using a hold action to gain an advantage against the superior numbers. You'll be able to go to the edge like nobody else. Don't let the name fool you. Basic actions are anything but. So first one, attack. Basic action to make an attack with a ranged combat or melee combat. The check system, page 37 for more information on how to attack. Grab. Grab, hold someone, take an object that they are carrying, or escape a grapple, both you and your target with the arm's reach of Dex plus Brawl skill or Athletics skill, so plus D10. So both you and your target are within arm's reach. You roll Dex plus Brawling or Dex plus Athletic skill plus D10, which is fairly okay. So most of the time, like most common system is going to be Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, so you're rolling your primary attribute plus a skill plus a D20. This is the same thing, primary attribute plus either athletics or brawling as that skill, but we're using a D10 instead. Fairly simple. Both the attacker and the defender, whichever skill is better for them. So both the attacker and defender use whichever skill is better for them. If the attacker wins, they can choose to either grab hold of the defender or take an object. Weapon, milkshake, etc. They've got milkshake. Why? Anyway, back to this. The defender is carrying but not armor they are wearing, which is fairly smart. You're not going to be able to picking up armor, but at least it tells you that that's a specific thing. You're not going to be able to do it. Okay, they've got to have a free hand, so they've got to be able to do it into their free hand. If the attacker wins and chooses to grab hold of the defender, both characters are now considered to be grappled and take -3 to all checks as long as they remain in the grapple. While grappled, the defender cannot use their move action and is dragged with the attacker whenever the attacker makes a move action. So if you are grappled, you can't make move actions, but the attacker can, and the attacker is dragging you when they do that. I like that. It makes sense. And it's clearly written too. The attacker can end the grapple at any time without using an action, but the defender or any other character must use his action to roll a successful grab against the attacker to break the grapple. When you attempt to escape a grapple, you are considered to... When you attempt to escape from a grapple, you are considered to be the attacker for the purpose of the defender winning the tie. Okay. There we go. So when you're trying to get out, you're again going to be the attacker. We lost our music. Back to our... Let's go back to Rocco play some music for you. We'll turn it a bit down. There we go. It's very hard priced. So this is the music, this is the audio for the apartment itself, for the game which you get to play with the Jumpstart kit. And so we're back to down to choke. If you are currently the attacker in the grapple, you can use an action to choke the defender you are grappling, dealing your body stat directly to their hit points in damage. This damage ignores the defender's armor but doesn't lower the armor's SP. That's something we'll get into later. So if you're the attacker, you can use an action for doing choke. So if you grappled someone previous round, they haven't gotten out, you can then start choking and you're doing your body stat against as their damage essentially. It doesn't care if they've got armor or anything, you're just choking them. So let's go, next one. Throw. Throw a person you are grappling or an object you are holding. If you are currently the attacker in a grapple, you can use a throw to throw them to the ground, dealing your body stat directly to their hit points and damage. This damage again ignores the armor, but doesn't lower the armor's SP. Throwing your target ends the grapple, freeing you both from the -3 checks to either participant, and leaves them prone, unable to use their move action until they use a basic action just to get up. You can use this action to throw an object you are holding to a maximum distance of meter yards equal to your body. If you're using a grid, that's half your body in squares, rounding up. For the jumpstart kit, since there isn't much to throw, no grenades, no knives, etc., the GM determines how much damage your improvised thrown object will deal. If you can, and if so, improvised object thrown will deal, and if it can even damage an armored target, it might just make a target mired. The full game will have things you can throw at people. So it does say this is what you can do with it, but we don't actually have them in the jumpstart kit, so you're going to have to improvise for the moment. At least it tells you this is how you do it, instead of just going, well, it's not here, so I'm not even going to tell you how to do it. It's just going to tell you how to do it, but we don't have actual weapons to throw yet. I don't mind that. I actually don't mind that at all. Get up. Use a basic action to stand up from prone. Yep. That's pretty much. Run. Use an basic action to take an additional move action. If you can't use a move action right now, you can't use this action. So in most games with an action economy, you can use your move action to move, and then you can use an action to move again, which is the same thing here. You can essentially get 2 move actions. Okay, so you use a skill. Use an action to use one of your skills to attempt to accomplish a quick task, 3 seconds max. If the GM determines your proposed task will take more than 3 seconds, you still want to do it, you can spend your basic action every turn to attempt to accomplish it at a rate of 3 seconds per turn, making your check only when you've finished the duration of the task. Ooh, that's painful. The task result is covered in resolving actions with skills located later in the section. So I'm seeing that, okay, something might take 9 seconds to do it. So you're spending 3 actions, 3 rounds to do it, then you make it, you check and fail it. It's like, oh, but I don't mind it actually clearly stating what the rules are. I think that's really cool. Okay, let's go to the next one. So, use an object. Drawing an easily accessible weapon isn't an action if you have a free hand. So this is something that tends to get ignored in a lot of games, that usually games will have drawing an object or picking up an object or things like that is an action. It's like, but it usually gets ignored. But anyway, we'll go into this. So use this action as a catch-all for using, manipulating, picking up any other object in ways that wouldn't require using a skill and aren't covered by other actions, but will still require a quick 3 seconds of effort. Use this for things like opening a door, switching your held shotgun out for an assault rifle slung to your back, picking up an unattended weapon off the floor, pressing a button on the detonator, biting a slice of pizza. Again with the food jokes. I like it. Your turn is only 3 seconds, so if you really want to do a simple task that takes longer than 3 seconds while in combat, you'll need to use this action each turn to pay for that 3 seconds per turn. Using net actions. This will be more detailed later, that's for sure. Only a net runner can make the use net actions, which they can take instead of taking another basic action on their turn. Most net runners can even take multiple net actions in a single turn. Net actions are covered by net running section, page 29. So hold an action. In combat, a character can use this action to choose hold off on basic actions in a specific number of initiative. So until a specific number in the initiative queue comes up, which can only be later in the current round. When that time comes, they can choose to either go through with their chosen action or forgo it entirely. You can't hold an action across multiple rounds. You can't change your mind about the action when the initiative queue you're holding for. I like that. Move actions and net actions cannot be held at all. Really like that. You can't wait, okay, when that person comes out here, I'm going to charge. No, you can't move. You can't hold like in hacking, net actions. But I like that you actually have to pick a number in the initiative queue. I really, really like that. It's like you're not going, okay, when this person moves as the trigger, I'm going to shoot. You've got to say, I'm going to shoot at this point in the initiative order. And just hope that they move out and present themselves to the target. I like that. That's a very different way of seeing things. And I think it might be interesting to play it through. I like that idea of doing it. It's less reactionary, but more coordinated. So you can have multiple people saying, okay, we're all going to move our initiative to this time and all act at once. That makes it coordinated attack. That makes it tactical compared to just the reactionary of he moves out, I shoot as soon as he's in view. So I really like that idea. Okay, getting it done. Resolving actions with skills. Whenever a character tries to do something called taking an action, there's always a question of whether they'll succeed or fail. Sometimes the task is so easy it's obvious, for instance, taking a step forward without falling down. In these cases, tell the GM what you're doing and no die roll is needed. Where was I up to? No die roll is needed. But if you're trying to take a step on the deck of a ship, pitching wildly in a diving rainstorm while walking might be very difficult indeed. That's where resolving actions with your skills comes to play. There are two ways to resolve an action. The first is to resolve an action against a living thing or person, like trying to convince someone to do something for you. To do this, you, the attacker, add your relevant stat plus skill plus d10 to a die roll against the opponent's defender's stat plus skill plus d10. So that's how you do your opposed rolls. The result of the result of the opponent's stat plus skill plus d10 roll is also known as the difficulty value, and the amount your stat plus skill plus d10 will need to beat in order for you to succeed. In a case of a tie, the defender wins. That's new. So a lot of the biggest name systems in role-playing these days have meets beats, or if you get the number, if you meet the number, if you equal the number, in the case of tie, the attacker wins. In this case, the defender wins. And that's going to be something to get your mind around. I actually don't mind that. I think that the defender should have that onus, or the attacker should have that onus to get past the defender, not just equal the defender. So I like that you have to get past it. So the second way of resolving an action against a situation, like picking a lock, driving a car, how tough these tasks are resolved is based on how hard it will be to perform. First, the GM uses the table below to decide which rating describes the level of the ability required to perform the task. Then you add your stat plus skill plus d10 and try to beat the difficulty value the GM has assigned to the action you want to perform. So, challenged, this is something that most people can do without thinking, is difficulty 10. Every day, this feat is something most people can do without special training, is a 14. Combatant is 18. Heroic is 22. Incredible, 25. Legendary is 30. Legendary is not something you'll be playing in the Jumpstart kit, that's for sure. Critical success. When you roll a natural 10 on your D10, you've scored a critical success. Roll another D10 and add it to the first result of your score. If you roll another 10, you do not add another critical success. So what's this? This is known as exploding dice. This is a very old school technique where if you, instead of having say a 20 as the, oh my god, we've got a critical, in this case if you roll a 10, you just roll it again. And you've got 10 in the first, then you roll maybe 5, so you now got 15 for your roll, plus your stat, plus skill, etc. So your dice explode, you get more dice to roll, etc. It only is going to explode once. I've never been a fan of exploding dice. Exploding dice, like the reason why exploding dice I've never been a fan of is possibly because my first few instances of role-playing games had exploding dice where I don't think we knew the rules and we weren't doing exploding dice correctly, and things got out of control very badly. So yeah, I can't even remember the systems that we were using, but the systems were very strange compared to the systems we use these days for role-playing games. Very out there styles and concepts in their systems, in the rules. But yeah, so critical success. If you roll a 10, you roll again and add that to your 10 to get the number that you'd have. Critical failure, on the other hand, when you roll a natural 1 on your D10, you've scored a critical failure. You roll another D10 and subtract that result from the first roll. If you roll another 1, you do not score another critical failure. So again, exploding dice, but in the negative value. That's an interesting one of doing it. I don't mind that version because your stat and skill could be quite good, and even if you get a -1 to, like, even if you get like a little bit negative for that, it still might be not too bad. But I don't think it's needed, is the other part. I don't think it's really needed for that critical failure side of things. But there are modifying the attempt. Sometimes conditions beyond control may make it harder to perform an action. For example, changing a light bulb might be an everyday task, but changing a light bulb in an earthquake is a whole order of magnitude tougher. These examples, I would have thought changing a light bulb in an earthquake while in a firefight would be the next one, but yes. These are external conditions called modifiers. When the GM decides a modifier applies to your action, you will automatically subtract that modifier value that goes with it for your dice roll. Here are some typical conditional modifiers. I do notice they're all penalties. All of these conditional modifiers are penalties. Then they said subtract. They have no indication here that there's going to be positives further down the line when the full rule set comes out. It's only penalties in this circumstance. So, unfamiliar tools, weapon or vehicle is a -4. Unfamiliar weapon is a -4. So picking up someone else's weapon in a firefight will be a -4. That's a thing. You cannot just pick up another person's weapon and fire it. You need to be trained on a weapon, you need to be familiarized with a weapon, where the sights are. There's a lot of stuff that goes on when firing a weapon. You just can't pick up someone else's weapon and just automatically be amazing with it, especially in a combat situation. So I think that's really important. I like that part. There's a lot of things in this I really like, just not the critical success and failure system. Until I have experience in play, of course. I'd have to have experience in play to see how that works in effect. Anyway, lack of instructions for a task is a -2. Don't have the right tools or parts, -2. Complex tasks, -3. Have never done this before is only a -1. Okay. Under the stress or under attack, -3. Drunk, drugged, or tired, -4. I like to put drunk in there. That's a good one. And even tired in there is a -4. Trying to perform tasks secretly. So when trying to do it with stealth, that's a -4. Or subtly, like pickpocketing and stuff like that. It's kind of important. Task obscured by smoke or darkness. So smoke grenades and things like that, again -4. And I'm guessing you're going to be able to get multiples of these. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. That's when you get the higher difficulty values. Trying again using complementary skills. Trying again using complementary skills or extra type. This is where you can get your bonuses, I believe. If you fail a skill check, you cannot try again unless your chances of success have improved for some reason. You took longer or used better tools or made a complementary skill check. Wow. That's a very, very different way of doing things from what we're used to. I ran a game in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons where I had players pretty much doing, like, pretty much checking all the time and taking the maximum result of the things because they were just doing the same check as a constant thing all the time for traps and etc. And for me as a GM, I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Stop doing this. But it's in the rules. There's no time. Blah blah blah. I was really pissed off. I come from 2nd edition D&D. That was my mostly played game. Where if you fail to pick a lock with your rogue, you cannot do it again until you go up a level. So in this, it's the same thing where you can't do the same check more than once. You can't, I try to see if he's lying. Oh no, I rolled a 2. I try to see if he's lying again. It's like, no, you can't. Has anything changed? No. I try to intimidate. Also, I try to charm someone. Okay, you try to charm. You fail. I try to intimidate instead. Or no, I try to charm again. Well, that's not going to happen because nothing's changed. But they can try to intimidate only if your chances of success have improved. If you go backwards in that, then you can't. So that's something you can do. You can push a roll in Call of Cthulhu and try a different approach. So you try to charm first. You fail that. Okay, I try to intimidate and use that technique. That's pushing a roll in Call of Cthulhu. But in this, you can't do the same thing again unless you improve. So complementary skill checks are when you use one skill directly that affects the use of a subsequent skill. At the GM's discretion, a good roll in one skill may confer a +1 bonus to subsequent use in related skills, so long as the complementary nature of the two skills makes sense. This +1 only affects the subsequent attempt once, and the complementary skill bonuses do not stack. So how would that work in I don't know how that would work in play. I would have to speak to other players and see how that works in play and see how they would use something like that. So I can find examples for most things, but for that one, the complementary skill, I can't think of a way of doing it. So I'll go through it again. Complementary skill checks are where the use of one skill directly affects the use of a subsequent skill. At the GM's discretion, a good roll in one skill may confer a +1 bonus at the subsequent use of a related skill, so long as the complementary nature of the skill of the two skills makes sense. So I can see that as a first approach. I can't see that as a trying again. I cannot see that as trying again. I can't see you failing, then coming back and trying to use a complementary skill to improve your chances. I think complementary skill can only be used as an initial approach, such as I try to distract my target with conversation or with etc. while I pick his pocket. That would be a complementary skill. So use your social to then pick his pocket. Like you do a roll in the first one. If you roll high enough, then okay, you're distracting. You get a +1 for your picking pocket. That's how I can see that one maybe. So taking extra time, you can also give a bonus to your skill. You can also give a bonus to maybe stacking. Okay. Bonus to your skill roll. When the GM tells you how long the task will take to complete, you can get a +1 bonus to your skill roll for taking 4 times longer. So again, that would be the same example of talking to someone and distracting them. If you do that for 4 times longer, then you can have like another +1 to getting that, maybe the pickpocket, etc. So what skill do I use? What stat do I use? Well, what do you want to do? In Jumpstart Kit, we've linked each skill to a stat that is used in the beginning of this book. The section titled Soul and the Machine breaks each of these skills into greater detail, and Combat Systems discusses how they operate in combat. So essentially, we've got this bits down here. So intelligence, perception, search for hidden, detect lies, etc. So it gives you examples for everything, which is pretty cool. Dex melee weapon is your fighting melee weapons. Dex and melee as well weapons. Do you have a strength? So you got Dex and stealth for hide and move silently. I love cool being a ability. Cool as an ability is actually really gorgeous. I love that idea. So cool, bribery. Know when, who or how much to bribe. I like cool. Cool is a stat. That's cool. So yeah, there's a nice combination on there. It's really cool. If you really want to use stat and skill combination not listed here to gain yourself an advantage, instead of proposing a complementary skill check. If you really want to use a stat and skill combination not listed here to gain yourself an advantage, instead try proposing a complementary skill check to your GM to potentially net yourself a sweet +1 bonus, and try taking 4 times longer to complete the task and another +1. So it actually does come out and say those two can stack, which I like. Which is what it kind of hints at in the initial, but it comes out and says it does now. Okay. When you don't have a skill, failure is part of the storytelling and life, and should be embraced in role-playing too. Thank you. When you don't have a skill, still try, because failure is an option. Failure is a really good option. In like some systems, failure is the only option, and the only option to improve is to fail a skill. And I really like that it does say, look, go for it. If you can't find a complementary skills, you should read when you don't have a skill. So failure is an option. There we go. Here we go. When you don't have a skill. When you don't have a skill but you want to use it, try it anyway, you have 2 options. Out of luck. Simply use the stat that the skill you don't have linked to, and add your D10. You don't have a skill? Well, you can't add your skill if you don't have it. So you just have your D10 plus your stat. Done. That's all you get when you're relying purely on your stat and dumb luck. Speaking of luck times, when you are considering this option, a perfect time to use it. Before you roll, you can dedicate a portion of your remaining luck pool, which holds your luck points equal to your luck, which refills at the beginning of the game session, and roll the skill. Which increases the roll by +1 for each point of luck you can spend. So if you don't have a skill, hey, use your luck. You have a stat called luck, you can just use it up. It comes back to the start of the next session, but it doesn't say you have to use it beforehand. Let's see, you're relying purely on dumb luck. Speaking of luck, when times you're considering this option, you have a perfect time to use it. Before you roll, you can dedicate it. So it's not a post, it's before, it's a pre. Cultural familiar, I like the idea of pre, I don't like post. Post is very friendly to players. I would rather forcing a player to burn their luck, and if they roll a critical, oh well, they've burnt their luck, they didn't need it. Or if they roll a critical failure, same thing maybe. Instead of going, oh, I'm one part lower, can I use my luck? No, too late, you had to declare beforehand. That's my... I do the evil GM. I prefer having players waste their skills if that's how it works. That's how it does things. Anyway, cultural familiarity. There are times, so there are very few things that can be done that aren't described in some manner in the media. Some people shoot guns in movies, legends describe how a hero used their sword. Tom Clancy novels, specifically Tom Clancy novels, tell all about how submarines work. That's actually kind of accurate. The accuracy of a Tom Clancy novel is actually kind of strangely, yeah. When it comes to the submarines, yes. Cultural familiarity assumes the more widely educated you are, the more chance you may have ran across something relating to what you're about to attempt. When you don't have a skill that will apply, you can use cultural familiarity in place of a skill. Your cultural familiarity increases by 1 time. So your cultural familiarity increases by 1 for every 3 points you have in education skill. So stay in school. Yes, stay in school and watch a lot of movies about how they do gunfire. I like it. So, simple, remember to pretty much do anything in Cyberpunk. Simply pair a stat or a skill plus a d10 against a difficulty value. If your check is over that amount, you did it. Everything else is just window dressing. Pretty much. That's the most basic version of it. I like it. Cultural familiarity, education, skill. There you go. So you have to have 6. So 1 to 2 is 0, 3, 4, 5 is 1, 6, 7, 8 is 2, and 9 to 10 is 3. So you can just, if you have 10 in it, you only have 3. But that's the thing. Okay. So now net running is a big thing. Like, it is a really big thing. So what, it's 10 pages, I think? 8 pages. It's gonna be big. We'll try to get through it. Let's go. Net running in the time in the red. You patch your patching the last connection, making sure your plugs are in tight. You mentally slam down the go switch. Instantly your mind is filled with the grey-white static of the drop to online. Vivid shapes and images flood your field of vision, while shifting neon shapes, grid lines and diagonals, and digitized sounds take over the virtual interface. You're on the net. Do we have a net running thing here? I don't think we have that. Oh, we do. We have a net running here. There. There's a net running background. Okay. There are many different types of roles you can play in Cyberpunk, but one role is unique and that has its own rules and own rules and realities, and that's the role of the Netrunner. In Cyberpunk Red, we treat Netrunners exactly like any other type of character, except that their weapons and their defenses all take place inside the mental / computer generated reality of cyberspace, aka the net. You need a cyber deck to do this. Cyber decks are special devices designed to find and access systems by converting brain waves into electrical signals and vice versa. They effectively are modems, Wi-Fi systems for your mind. Without a cyber deck and training to use it, you can't even see the net. Okay, common net running terms. Ability, a function built into the cyber deck of a function built into a cyber deck any netrunner can use without a program. Black Ice, an autonomous attack program that can fry your real brain. Body weight suit. That's a new one to me. A suit designed for netrunners with built-in armor. Cyber decks are capable. A suit designed for netrunners with built-in armor, cyber deck, and capable storage and sometimes life support functions. Okay, that's pretty cool. Control node, a location in virtual space which allows the control of a real-world device. Cyber deck, a computer that converts brainwaves into electrical impulses and vice versa. Without it, there is no net running. Elevator and floors, a method used by netrunners to describe cyberspace in simple terms. Each floor contains one program or virtual object. The elevator allows travel between floors. Interface plug, cyberware that allows you to plug your brain into a machine. Continued, page 32. Okay, here we go. You'll need a few extra tools beside a cyber deck. Your cyber deck allows you not only to see the net, but also to interact with its denizens. It projects these into virtuality goggles. Okay, that's a weird pronunciation. I'm sorry, I really butchered that, but I think that's correct. It doesn't say virtual reality, but virtuality goggles or headsets allowing you to see the images of the net superimposed on the real world. Since you are actually moving in the real world, aka meat space, you won't be able to jack your optic nerves into the net like they did before the time of the Red. Oh, if you did it the old school way, you would be stumbling around deaf and blind, and all your senses would be fully in cyberspace. Instead, runners use virtuality goggles, headsets that project cyberspace imagery over your view of the space and that reality. Oh, of course, that's awesome. That is really, really cool. So that means that you are seeing and hearing things like programs Black Ice while your meat space team buddies will see nothing, but it also means you won't trip over the door still when you sneak into the secret biolab. Since you're also running around in the real world where the bad guys use guns, you'll want some protection besides your teammates. Most runners now wear body weight or similar brands of protective armor. These skin suits filled with impact absorbing sintered armor gel. Okay. Armor absorbing sintered armor gel laid in key body areas, beside giving you a measure of protection equal to light armor jack. These have places to store your cyberdeck, support interface, cables. That is really cool. Okay, so previously on Shadowrun and on Cyberpunk, you had to jack in to the net, and that means that your body is now limp, and that means your body is now a target. Now you're using these, they're calling it virtuality goggles, virtuality goggles, not virtual reality but virtuality goggles, which is essentially that, where you can see the virtual reality of the net, plus you can see around you as well. So it overlays the net over the goggles. Think of Google Glass. That's a real thing. What they're describing here is a real thing, but they've keyed it into a very large. You can see underneath me the guy with his cyber deck. He's got his virtual reality goggles up there, and also when we have a look at Red Eye, that's a virtual. It's a virtuality deck on top of, yeah. But you can see through that. It's just an overlay over your eyes. So that's a nice way of doing it. And that was always the drawback of the decker, of the netrunner, where their body is now limp and doing nothing. So I like that they've changed. I think that's a really good change, and a really positive change at that. So yeah, I think it's really cool that they've been able to do that. Okay, big change. Okay, so meet actions versus net actions. So let's see what you can do in a net running. Let's see what you can do in net run. Unlike most other character roles, net runners have access to two kinds of actions: meet actions, non-move actions which take place in reality or meet space, and net actions which take place purely on the net. On your turn, you can take either a meet action or take as many net actions as your interface level allows. No matter which you choose, you still get to take your move action. So net actions. The higher a net runner's interface level, the more net actions they can take on their turn. So net actions level 1 to 3, you get 1, 4 to 6, 7 to 8, so 7 to 9, and 10, etc. So level 1 interface in net can only use 1 net action per turn, while a level 7 interface can use 3 net actions per turn. Net actions and abilities. Jacking in or jacking out. Don't be dirty. We're talking about putting plugs in. Again, don't be dirty. That's really bad. I just realized what I just said then. Okay. This is the most important net action you can do. Using net actions, you can jack into a system while within accessible range, usually within 6 meters, typically blocked by walls. One of these, typically blocked by walls of one of these access points, either on the net action. One of the access points or other net connections. Being jacked in is a prerequisite for doing anything in the system. Moving out of the system's range while jacked in to other system jacks. That's weird. So, Moving out of the system's range while jacked into the system jacks you out of the system automatically but leaves you vulnerable. You suffer an effect of all remaining black ice you've encountered, and the system you've. Oh, wow. You suffer the attack effect of all remaining black ice you've encountered in the system before you get out. Black ice will be explained later, but trust us, you don't want this to happen. Well said. Okay, so while you don't have to physically go in, you still have to be within 6 meters typically, and it says blocked by walls, so you can't be on the other side. You have to be, at least close. Anyway, and you don't want to move away. Yeah, you don't want to move. You don't want to lose your Wi-Fi connection. Is pretty much that. This is safer. So it is much safer to use a net action to jack out within the system range. Jacking out resets the defenses of the net architecture, meaning you'll have to start your run from the very beginning, which can only be done by jacking back into the system in the same location you originally entered and giving another shot. So you can, if you're getting into trouble on the net, you can just go, no, okay, I'll use my action to jack out, to get out of there, and then start again, and hopefully not get as much security on you. And it does say it resets, which is pretty cool. Net running abilities. Wow, there's a few. There's quite a few. This is why there's a whole section just for this. Ugh. Your Netrunner also has nine abilities they can perform as actions. These are automatically programmed into their cyber deck. They can use abilities using their net actions, save for scanner. Okay. Resolution for using any of these actions, save for zap, is much like performing other actions of another type. Okay. So scanner, what it does, use a meat action to find a meat space location for your systems in your area. The higher the check, the more you spot from further away. It's up to the GM's discretion how much you will find. Okay, the Netrunner uses a scanner ability to search a building for systems to hack in the meat space action. Roll 1d10, add their interface number. They get the 1d10 and adding the interface number of 17, they get a 14. With the check, the GM determines that the Netrunner learns the meat space locations of 2 nearby systems in the building. So backdoor, don't be dirty. This allows the Netrunner to break through passwords in the net architecture using a net action of course, if you actually knew the password, you already wouldn't need to do this. Netrunner encounters a particularly difficult password of DV14 blocking their progress while in a system. Using net action to attempt to backdoor it, you roll D10 plus their interface 7, getting 16. The password blocks the Netrunner no more. Pathfinder, using a net action to partially reveal the map of the net architecture. The higher you check, the more you learn. This tells you greatly of what the system you have broken into, but not the difficulty value of anything. It is up to the GM's discretion of how much of the map you have learned. Deeper floors of the elevator are much harder to map out. Makes kind of sense there. There we go. After jacking into a new system, Netrunner has no idea what they might be up against, so they use a Pathfinder ability with net action to find out. Rolling the interface plus D10, they get a 10. the GM determines that they learn the first 3 levels of the elevator with such a low check. Slide. Attempt to flee combat with Black Ice program as a net action. If you are able to roll a successful slide check against the program's perception plus D10, you can escape the Black Ice to an adjacent floor of the elevator, but not past a password or other net obstructions. You can attempt to slide once per turn. You can't slide preemptively. In the middle of a painful conflict with a hellhound Black Ice, a netrunner decides that they really don't have the time to get killed right now. Using a net action, they attempt to slide away from the Black Ice, rolling interface 7 plus D10. The hellhound's perception of 8 plus D10. The netrunner gets 14 versus the hellhound's 13. Success. The netrunner chooses to escape to the next floor in the elevator. Unfortunately, there is another hellhound waiting there. The netrunner really should have used Pathfinder. They can't slide again until their next turn. So yeah, that's a nice one to do. That gives you an idea of what's on the system, and knowing what's on the system before doing that's a better idea. Zap allows you to make an attack as a net action against the program or enemy netrunner. If you are able to roll a successful zap against the program's defense value plus D10 or the netrunner interface plus D10, you deal 1d6 damage to the program's res or directly to the netrunner's brain. Brain damage isn't modified by location. Eek. A netrunner who has already used all of their attack programs this turn still hasn't managed to finish off the hellhound. Luckily, they have 1 net action left. So they zap it, rolling an interface 7 plus D10 versus the hellhound's interface 7 plus D10. They beat it and deal 1d6 points of damage to the nethound's res, finishing it off. ID. That's so bad. I like puns. I do. It's a bad one. I like it. Allows you to know what a found piece of data, like a file, is, and its value using the net action. Some files have a DV that must be beating to learn anything from them. So essentially, a quick, what is this file? After discovering an interesting titled file, the netrunner uses their ID ability with the net action. It's DV10 file. So the netrunner rolls interface 7 plus D10, rolling higher than 10, and rolls higher than 10. Unfortunately, the file is a dummy left in the system just to waste the netrunner's time. And I like the idea of having examples of having dummies, give the GM an idea that place dummies in there, place obstacles like that to waste the time, and it's a great way of doing things. Control, we're getting to them. So I knew that netrunning was going to be a big one. So this ability, this is the ability to control things attached to the system, like cameras, vehicles, robots, remotes, using control node. Each node has a DV required to take control of it. As a net action, operating each individual thing attached to the node requires a separate net action. So, each node has a difficulty value required to take control of it as a net action. Operating each individual thing attached to the node requires a separate net action after a successful control. Check So check on the node. So control check on the node. The DV to rest the control node currently held by another netrunner is equal to the control check they made to take control of it. Okay, so in games like Shadowrun, you have a specific class which is specifically there to deal with controlling robots, etc. The netrunner has that inbuilt in their programming. So the rigger is the one in Shadowrun, which are kind of netrunners, kind of hackers, but they focus more on the actual mechanical side of things. In here, they actually have the ability for the netrunner as a part of inbuilt. And it also says that you can only control one at a time. Like controlling one takes an action, so giving a command takes an action. So having multiple of them is going to take multiple actions per round. Not going to happen as much. Anyway, in a network, a netrunner encounters a difficulty value 12 control node and manages the cameras on the floor. By using the net action to use the camera ability, they roll interface 7 plus d10 to beat the control node's difficulty value by 2. Now they've taken control of the node, they use an additional net action to reposition the cameras so that they will not capture the netrunner's friends or they sneak out of the fire escape. But if someone else tries to take that off the netrunner, that person then has to beat 14 to take it back. So in this case, you'll need to remember what numbers you made to actually do those. Okay. Back to common terms, we've done those. Oh, there's new ones. So, meet action, a derogatory term used to refer to an action taken in the physical world, aka regular action. The net, cyberspace. Before the Fourth Corporate War, it was possible to travel across the world and into the space outside the net. Now netrunners have to travel to specific net locations and jack in directly. So the internet as we know it in our world is fully connected. In Cyberpunk Red, after the Fourth Corporate War, it's more like bulletin boards. So they're not really linked to each other. All the nodes are cut. All the nodes are separate. A building is not connected to the net. A building is only connected to a building. That's it. You can't get out of there. But you can jack into the building. And you can control your security or whatever in that building, but you can't do it elsewhere. Yeah. That's what that means. So net action, an action taken outside the virtual world of inside the virtual world of cyberspace. Program software that you can slot into your cyber deck to enhance its functionality, divided into 3 classes: boosters, attackers, defenders. Res, hit points of programs, and black ice. Slot, a chunk of memory in the cyber deck allocated to a program. The better the deck, the more slots it have. Virtuality goggles. That's gonna trick me up all the time. Virtuality goggles that overlay cyberspace landscape into your field of vision. There we go. We got 2 more though. Net running abilities continued. Virus. There we go. Once you have reached the last level of an elevator, you can leave your own virus in the system to act however you want within reason. Roll an interface check. The higher your check, the more impressive the effect of the virus can have on the network, and the shorter time it takes to write. A more powerful virus requires a higher difficulty value to leave in the system, as determined by the GM. This ability can require as many net actions as the GM determines. The difficulty value to destroy the virus is equal to the interface check made to create it. After reaching the end of an elevator, the character. So, in a after reaching the end of an elevator in a corporation system, the Netrunner wants to leave the system worse than they found it. Of course, they explain to the GM that they want to leave a virus in the system that changes all the passwords in the network every 5 minutes. The GM determines that the placing the virus will take 9 net actions and to leave in the system, and assign the task a difficulty value of 14. Over the next 3 turns, the Netrunner spends all 3 of their net actions to complete the virus, then rolls the difficulty, then rolls their interface 7 plus their d10, rolling only a 12. Their code doesn't work, so they decided to try it again, spending another 9 actions over another 3 turns. This time succeeding with a 15. The Netrunner's virus, later discovered by the corporation, their Netrunner gets a headache while trying to clean up the DC-15 virus. So, that sounds like a bitchy thing to do, but that's what Cyberpunk's about. It's about harassing, it's about getting back at the man, getting back at the corporations. So if you can leave a place that was prim and pretty in a worse state than when you arrived, then that's what you do. If you can get away with it, of course. Cloak, last one. Cloak, the ability to hide traces of your presence and any virus you left in your system using the net action. So pretty much hiding yourself afterwards. Also during, so it's traces of your presence and any virus you left in the system. The Pathfinder DV for another Netrunner to convince to overcoming Cloak and discover your actions is equal to your Cloak check. Okay, so your Cloak check is important to when you leave. That's their tracking. That's their difficulty for their tracking to find you. After leaving their virus on the corporation's network, the Netrunner wants to hide their actions in the system along with their virus. So they use net action to use their Cloak ability. They roll interface plus d10, getting 16. An enemy Netrunner will have to beat their number of the interface plus d10 before they can discover any traces of the Netrunner or be able to roll against any virus that they left. If the Netrunner didn't leave a flashy virus, maybe the corp wouldn't even have known that the system would be compromised. So style over substance, maybe. Leave a virus may not be the best thing when it comes to that. Okay, so we'll keep going. Programs. When programs are weapons and gear of cyberspace, like weapons and gear of meat space, programs are the tools of a Netrunner used to fight, protect, and explore the electronic realm. Activating and deactivating a program takes a single net action. Program slots. A cyberdeck is limited to the number of slots that they hold, and cyberdeck is limited to a number of slots to hold the enormous AI-based programs that are required for run the net. You should pick them carefully. It takes 1 meat action to uninstall a program. It takes 1 to install a new one. So you can take a meat action in your turn to take it out, then come back in. That kind of works. Let's see. Each program has a class, attack, and res, aka hit points, and the effect. Boosters improve the abilities. So, boosters improve abilities in your cyberspace when loaded. Attackers block IC or other systems doing damage as described. And defenders stop otherwise stop or otherwise reduce the attackers or programs from other netrunners. Okay. Boosters. Speedy Gonzalez has class booster res 7, increases your speed by +4 as long as this program remains resed. A trail of dust appears from behind the netrunner as they move. Why? Banhammer attacker. As attack of 2. Does 3d6 res to hellhounds, 2d6 res to all others, can only hurt programs. A giant glowing white sledgehammer. Oh boy. Defenders. Flak. Class defender, res 1. Stops the first successful non-hellhound attack from dealing brain damage. After stopping this attack, the flak de-reses itself. The cloud, so icon, a cloud of blinding, glowing, multicolored lights swirling in all directions. It's flak. It's firework. These are all programs you need for the Jumpstart kit. There are more to discover in the full game. Only one instance in particular, only one instance of a particular program can be run on a cyber deck at the same time as an individual program can be activated in meat space. So let's go. Only one instance of a particular program can be run on a cyber deck at the same time. And individual programs can only be activated once per meat space round. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. We've got Black Ice. Black Ice are the bads. I won't go into that. I think we're going to call it here. We won't go into too much detail of the net running. We've got the bases there. Yeah, we've got the bases there. I don't want to go too much into that more because there's a lot more that you can really deep dive into. Now, one thing I want to do in the combat section, I just want to go the very base combat, and then we'll wrap it up here. So, combat rounds, and here we go. So Thursday Night Throwdown. Thursday Night Throwdown, or TNTD, is a modification of Cyberpunk's original weapon combat system, Friday Night Firefight, or FNFF, for use of modern, futuristic, and anarchistic firearms in Cyberpunk unit adventures. Unlike FNFF, which is designed to exhaustively and realistically cover all major elements of weapons in combat, TNTD has been modified to create an easier format, allowing players to experience firefight action without resorting to lots of detail. TNTD also covers melee weapons, hand-to-hand combat, as well as simpler systems that allow you to use strategy over firepower. Like all our resolution systems in this Jumpstart, TNTD works on the basic principles of using stat plus skill plus d10 check to beat the difficulty value. We'll start by delving into range combat first. Okay, so this is a simplistic version, or a simpler version than the older style Friday Night Firefight rules in the older Cyberpunk stuff. This may be expanded upon in the new version of the full rule set. It doesn't really say that, but it does say that it's a simpler version, a simpler system that focuses on strategy over firepower. Where one of my experiences is that the more realistic combat gets in a role-playing game, the more dangerous it is, because combat is a dangerous thing. So the least realistic games, stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, have the least effect on the game. So yes, Dungeons and Dragons is a combat heavy game, etc., but it doesn't actually, there's no danger to it. There's very, very little danger to it. If you put realism into a game, something like Millennium's End, combat is something you do want to avoid. Millennium's End is a game of firearms for combat, and they use their firearms from actual real world statistics and therefore it's really, really dangerous, like superiorly dangerous. So the less realistic, the more you can just jump in and have fun, but there's not really that much danger to it. That's what I want to try to get into. And they've kind of said that this is a simplistic version, it's less gritty, it's more about the tactical side of things, so therefore it's going to be less dangerous. Anyway, so range combat occurs whenever you are using a weapon that requires hand-to-eye coordination to fire a projectile or beam. Ooh, they hint at beams. Generally that means a gun of some sort, typically a weapon you'll find the well-heeled cyberpunk on the street carrying. Okay, so we have all range weapon combat is resolved in the following ways. Attacker's reflex plus marksmanship skill plus d10 versus defender's DV value. So defender's DV determined by the range to the target, or the defender's dex plus evasion skill plus d10. So we'll get into the ranges as well. So defender with a reflex greater than 9 can choose to attempt to dodge a ranged attack instead of using the range table to calculate the DV. You can't dodge explosions, however. So if your reflexes are that high, so that's a 9 out of 10 by the way. If your reflexes are that high, you can dodge a bullet thereabouts. Yeah, that's pretty severe. And that's what it says. So normally it's going to be range for the difficulty value. If it's not range, they can actually choose to evade. They can dodge. That's what they're talking about. So generally it's going to be attacker's reflex plus marksman plus d10 versus defender's DV by range to the target and weapon. Okay, so range to target meters and DV values. Let's have a look at these. So a pistol in say 0 to 12 meters, so that's about minimum range, and normal range will be about 20. So the DV is going to be 15, and so then you've got about 20 for, like, yeah, you wouldn't be shooting more than maybe 20. But yeah, so that's there. So you've got that table there. It's not too bad. Yeah. If you beat the DV, you hit, the defender wins in a tie, damaging the defender's body location based on where you hit. They do have body locations. Yeah. I like it. I'm always a fan of body locations. It's an extra dice to roll generally, but these days when we have automated systems, it's just a button to press. And I don't mind having a button to press. So anyway, so we have weapon damage, and this is kind of a very generic version. So submachine guns, medium submachine guns, 2d6, heavy pistols, 3d6, very heavy pistols, 4d6, assault rifles and shotguns, 5d6, single-use missile launcher, 7d10, and C4 explosive pack, 8d10. So the defender's armor value will reduce the damage you do, as detailed in the armor section below. Range combat special cases. Aim for the head. By taking a -6 penalty to your check, you may aim for the head. If you hit, the damage value gets through the defender's armor is doubled. If you hit, the damage gets through the defender's armor value is doubled. Okay, so you double the. If you aim for the head and hit, anything that gets through the armor reduces the amount of damage, that then gets doubled. You can't do this with explosives, the armor section. 3-round burst. Assault rifles and submachine guns are capable of 3-round bursts. When using this feature, your attack action, calculate the difficulty value to hit your target using the following range table, plus 1 point Assault rifles and SMGs are capable of 3-round bursts. When using this feature with an action, you calculate the DV to hit the target using the following range table. For each 1 point you roll above the target's DV, or Dex plus evasion skill plus D10. An additional bullet hits your target up to a maximum of 3. Defender wins entire. Each of these bullets deal the weapons damage individually and are reduced by the armor individually. The burst hits a single target simultaneously and only ablates armor once per burst. Only after all damage is calculated, has been calculated. So that's an option, and it's got a different table as well, an easier table to hit. So you've got SMGs instead of having 15 are now a 12, and 15 is for the next one. So that's not bad. Yeah, not bad at all actually. For example, a solo fires a 3-round burst from their assault rifle at a target 11 meters away. So that's the assault rifle, 11 meters. It's going to be difficulty 10, so difficulty 12. The solo rolls their reflex plus marksmanship plus T10 and gets a 11. So it gets a 14. 14 is 2 higher than the 12. The assault rifle's 3-round burst difficulty value of the target 12 feet away. 2 bullets from the 3-round burst hit their target. Okay, so if you roll 2 higher, then 2 bullets hit. Okay. From hit their target, both bullets deal 5d8, rolling 17 and 20. The 17 bullet is reduced by the target's SP of the heavy jump, like the armor value of the heavy armor jacket. So that only takes 2 damage, so the armor is 15, damage is 17, so only 2 damage gets through. The 20 damage bullet is also reduced by the 15, takes 5 damage. The total of the damage to the armor, so total damage is 7, since the burst dealt through the armor 15 heavy, that's only dropped by 1. Okay. Yep. By the way, every time damage goes past your armor value goes down. That's something we're going to get to. That's why I like that. So your armor gets reduced over time. But in this case, if multiple damage hit in one round, in one burst, it's only going to be reduced once. There we go. So that's kind of how the armor works as well. So your armor just reduces the damage you take. And it's kind of a good idea to be armored in this game. Like, have a good armor value. And every time you take damage, that armor's going to go down. It's like you get bullet holes in armor, the armor's not as good. That's what the idea is. So suppressive fire. Assault rifles and SMGs are capable of using this feature while a wild firing designed to make an enemy keep their heads down. When used as an action, everyone within 25 meters out of cover in your line of sight must make a will plus concentration plus D10 against your reflex marksmanship roll. Everyone that fails that check is forced to use their next move action to get into cover. If that move action would be insufficient to get into cover, they must also use a run action to use their action to make another move action, which must be used to get them into cover, if they can get it. That's actually really impressive. So you're essentially forcing them to get into cover, which suppressive fires have never really worked in my history of doing games, especially firearms games, where suppressive fire, it's always a case that if they put their head out, like they can choose to like take cover, or they can choose not to, and if they put their head out, then they get hit. Like it's an automatic damage or etc. Automatic free attack or something like that. In this case, you're actually forcing them to use their actions to get into cover. So it actually is suppressing them. Using both their move action. If they can't do it with their move action, they must use their action to use their second move action. So that's pretty cool. Explosives, you don't exactly shoot them. Explosives in this system are treated like ranged weapons because the effects cover a broad area and do not require muscle power to deliver. Unlike guns, they deal damage to everyone in the area, centered around where they explode. For the purposes of the Jumpstart kit, always a circle 3 meter radius. If you're using a grid, that's a square made up of 9 squares. The explosive only deals damage to the body location, and the damage is reduced by armor as normal. GM rolls once for all victims in the blast. Melee combat. Okay, don't have a gun? Don't worry, there's always the option of melee combat. Melee combat takes place when you are using the strength of your body to hit with a weapon in hand. Or in some cases, your hands and feet alone. In short, this kind of combat uses either melee weapon or brawling attack. Brawling to attack your target with arms, feet. Let's do that again. In short, this kind of combat uses either melee weapon or brawling to attack a target within arm's reach, and always resolved in a manner similar to how everything is resolved in Jumpstart, i.e. the attacker's dex plus melee skill plus d10 versus the defender's dex plus evasion skill plus d10. If you are attacking with brawling, you can attack twice with one action. That's the attacker's brawling skill plus d10, or dex plus brawling d10, defender's dex. So brawling skill, you get 2 attacks, you get 1 and 2. That's why the option of brawling is actually pretty good. But I'm guessing fists are not going to do as much damage as a stabby or a bat. So just putting that out there. Right, if you're attacking with a melee weapon, you can attack twice. Oh no, you can attack twice with that one as well. Okay, you can attack twice with stabbies, and you can attack twice with punchies. Cool. So Thursday Night Throwdown, here we go. If you beat the difficulty value, the defender wins in a tie. So again, defender always wins if there's a tie. Damage to the target's body location based on your weapon. So the melee weapons, damage dealt by melee weapons ignores half of the defender's armor round up. Another one, rounding up. Most systems these days have rounding down to favor the players. Rounding up I like. I do like rounding up. So each of the 2 attacks made with a single melee weapon using a single action are made separately and deal melee damage to deal the melee damage. The weapons damage individually are reduced by armor individually, and can ablate armor individually. Ooh. Your 2 attacks with the melee weapons are also your 2 attacks with melee weapons can also be split across 2 different targets by using part of a move action to move between 2 targets. You can even get fancy with your melee combat by making a second attack a brawling attack. Melee weapons with effective. Oh, so you can stab and then punch. So it does. You can get fancy. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Melee weapons are effective against armor targets. So Cyberarm knife deals 1d6 damage, and slice and dice, rippers, and big knuckles do 2d6 damage. But the armor soaking is halved, so they're effectively going to be getting through a bit more. So the defender's armor will reduce the damage to do so, as detailed later in armor section. But halved. That's a pretty important one. Damage dealt by brawling is always a zero. Damage dealt by brawling is always 0 if the body location has armor. Oh, okay. However, the damage dealt by brawling scales heavily with body, making a powerful option for some characters. Each of the 2 attacks made with brawling use a single action. Each of the 2 attacks with brawling using a single action are made separately and deal damage individually, and can be split across 2 different targets by taking part of move action. You can move between targets. You can even get fancy by making the second attack with a melee weapon. Attack, brawling, effectiveness. Okay, so brawling damage is d6. Okay, so brawling damage scale. So if your body is 10, you get 4d6, which is really, really high. If your body is 3, you only get 1d6, but it doesn't do crap if the armor location has armor. So damage dealt by brawling is always 0 if that body location has armor. So if you want to punch someone, punch them in the head, do that cord shot. Here we go, melee special cases, aiming for the head. By taking -6 penalty to your check, you may aim for the head while using melee weapons or brawling. If you hit that damage in location gets through the defender's armor what gets through the defender's armor is double. But yeah, that's bad. Armor. This is what we want to get into, because this is really interesting. Armor is rated by its stopping power. That's what the SP was. Stopping power. Which is how well it can stop damage. It can be worn on both your body and head, and is simply advised that you do both. When you hit in an armored location, the attacker deals damage to your attacker rolls the damage to the attack. Subtract the armor's SP in that location from the damage that you take, the remaining damage from your hit points. Okay. If you ended up taking any damage at all, your armor on that location has ablated, reducing its SP by 1 permanently. Keep track of this on your character sheet. So, and it does have bits and pieces here. So leathers have a stopping power of 4 on your head and for your body. Kevlar has 7. Bodysuit has 11. Lightweight armor jacket has 11. Heavy armor jacket has 15. So you don't punch someone with 15. You punch someone in leather. That's how it works. Hit points, wounds, states, death. So wound states, death, healing. Okay, so hit points are a symbolic measure of how much life your character has inside. Your character has inside? A lot simpler than measuring how much blood, guts, bone you have to be destroyed. As you take damage described in numbers, you subtract those damage numbers from the pool of points called hit points, representing how much life your character has. That's actually really well written. It's not just well written, but it's written for players starting, like learning a system, because hit points is just thrown out there as everyone will know what this is, but no, it actually tells you kind of what it is and like why we use hit points. Yeah. In Jumpstart, you have hit points equal to 5 times your body. You take damage. So as you take damage, you will cross rune states thresholds, eventually becoming wounded in ways that impair your performance. Each more painful wounded state threshold you cross replaces the effect of the previous. The wound state you're in. The negatives luckily do not stack. Okay, most systems, and I say most systems, Shadowrun, they start stacking. I know of a few others that do that stacking, but in this case, each one is a new system. So if you are less than half hit points, you are lightly wounded. Your first aid difficulty value is 10, but you have no wound effects. If you're less than full hit points, but above half, that you have there's no wounding effects. But if you're below half hit points, you have -3 to all checks. Your first aid check is 13. If you're mortally wounded, which is less than 1 hit point. How can be less than 1? Yeah, anyway. -5 to all non-death save checks. You must make a death save at the start of every turn or die. And it's a difficulty 15 value to heal back from 1 to 1 hit point, which is pretty bad. Dead. Fail 1 death save. What's the name of your new character? And then first aid is never coming back. So I like that death is part of the game. Death needs to be part of games. When I started role playing, like, we didn't have like this player friendly attitude. It was dark, it was gritty. This is what I prefer. So death saves, sooner or later you'll run out of hit points and become become a messy cleanup on the street. That's where death save comes in. At the start of every turn you are mortally wounded. You must make a death save, roll d10. If you roll under your body, you live, and you take your turn as usual, albeit with -5 to all non-death saves. So, wow. But the death saves you roll are at -5, -1. So wait, let's go this. At the start of your turn, you are mortally wounded. You must make a death save. Roll d10, roll under your body, and you live. You can take actions as normal, albeit -5 to everything. That's not your death save. But future death saves you roll at a -1, a penalty which stacks until you are brought back to +1 hit points by a first aid roll. If you fail your death save, you are dead. So it stacks, it gets harder and harder and harder and harder. I like that. This is something similar where there's been brought in by Pathfinder 2, where the checks get increasingly worse. In other games like Dungeons & Dragons, the checks are just nothing. The checks are there. It's a 50-50 either way. There's no difference in that. At least we're comparing this to your body. If you have very high on your body rating, the checks are going to be easy. Well, for a while until they start stacking those penalties. If you have very low body, you have a very high likelihood you're going to die very early on. So again, I like this idea. Death should be a part of the game, which is supposed to be this gritty. So, healing. Assuming you don't end up in a body bank, as a spare parts, you want to heal up, so you'll get back to the street and do it all over again. To begin the healing process, you must first receive first aid. The difficulty value to perform success of first aid. Difficulty value to perform successful first aid on a target depends on what state of wounds they're in. So tech first aid plus d10. Once successful first aid has been received, the target will heal a number of hit points equal to their body for each day they are spent resting, doing only light activity and spending the majority of their time of day in bed until they return to the full hit point. One exception: a mortally wounded character who receives first aid immediately gets 1 hit point. So first aid does nothing unless you have long rest, like essentially bed rest, unless you are mortally wounded, where it gives you 1 hit point and stabilizes your mortally wounded status. So dead is dead, parts is parts, dead guys is parts. Ripperjack. I have been skipping over them, but these things are amazing in the book. These attitudes. So reputation, another kind of combat. Look, I won't get into reputation. This goes more into some other bits and pieces in the game, so we'll just skip over that part. But I think we've done fairly well. The Jumpstart kit is amazing. It's available in stores now. It's been available for almost a year, and it will be able to get you into. Let's get this. It'll be able to get you into the Cyberpunk, the new version, which is Cyberpunk Red. If you're a fan of the Witcher game series and like the rules in that, very similar, pretty much identical. Although I think the Netrunner is going to be very different to that, but the system is very familiar with the ablative armor being worn down, the beating to actually win a combat. If you tie, then the defender wins. Things like that, very similar. So I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a game which is very different, a very dark game, a sci-fi game, I highly recommend this. I like what they've done in a lot of parts of these rules, a lot. Only thing I don't like is the exploding dice for criticals. Everything else is awesome. The attitude is everything. The style, the background. Haven't even talked about the setting, but there's stuff there in the setting. There's a huge amount of setting stuff. There's timelines. There's everything there. So the world book has a lot of timelines there. And it's got the world stuff around Africa and etc. The 90s, 2000s, 220s, 230s, 225. It goes through everything. Present days to 2045. So it's really cool. The setting's great. Highly recommend it. And it's got everything. So it doesn't just have that. It's got the 2 books, which I mentioned. The 2 books. It has a couple of maps. It has pawns and pawn stands and dice and pretty much anything you need or everything you need just to jump in and have some fun and explore the Shadowrun. Also, not explore the Cyberpunk. Wow, that's a explore the Cyberpunk universe and the world of Red, Cyberpunk Red. That is. So, highly recommend it. Hopefully, that's given some ideas of what it is, and I've gone through and touched on things that you might want to know. If you want to know more, leave comments down below. And thank you for watching. My name is Carson Goblin. This is the Goblin Cave. We are actually going to be running our first Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart kit on the channel in about a month's time. And hopefully we're going to have a bit of fun. Hopefully we get to run a few times. We may actually open up our Full On Hope project and use Full On Hope as source material for Cyberpunk Red games, and have some fun through there. So again, thank you everyone for coming in, and from everyone here at the Goblin Cave, bye for now.